I call this meeting to order. Thank you all for being here. And yeah, let's get to it. So we'll start with, let's go ahead and start with a review and approval of the minutes. Let's see, the minutes have been distributed and read. Are there any noted or needed corrections for the minutes?
Nope.
All right, wonderful. Okay, I motion to approve the minutes. Can I please get a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of the minutes, say A.
Yay.
A. Any opposed, say nay. All right, wonderful. The minutes are approved. Yeah. Thank you,
Thanks,
Nick,
Nick.
for taking some excellent minutes. Fantastic. Okay, wonderful. Holly, would you please give us a rundown of the commission's financials?
Sure. Success. I'm able to share my screen. Big upgrade from last month. Woo! Okay, y'all. Nothing has changed since January. Just very quickly, we've got a few different lines of funds that we'll be using to fund our 3 grant cycles this year. Elliot will share more about that later in the meeting. From our general city allotment, we have a total of $65,000 to spend, and then in addition to that, we get that 2% annual increase. That's $849. And then we also have BUEA zone art grant funds available to us for up to $40,000 this year. That gives us a total of $105,849 to spend on grants this year. Have Fun Grant Subcommittee. In addition to that, we've got a couple of new lines that we can spend funds from this year. These are both from the local income tax increase that started at the beginning of '23. So we have $5,000 allocated to spend on emerging artist professional development. So this is if we want to do things like workshops and stuff like that. And then we have a line for public art and other types of grants. In the amount of $16,500. And so that is like, as we're doing things like releasing the public art master plan, which will happen in the early spring, we think we can also say, hey neighborhoods, like here's this new plan, and you will have the opportunity to use these funds to kind of take on some of these public art initiatives in your own backyards. So we'll be working out the details of how those funds will be allotted over the course of this year. And then we've got that line of operating funds. That's $3,461.65. And that basically says anytime we choose to hold, again, like a workshop for grants like we're going to do in a couple of weeks, or if we have an end of year party for our Bloomington Art Commission grant award recipients, we can pull from those funds to pay for those expenses. That's also the fund we will use when we do the opening ceremony or the ribbon cutting ceremony for the public art installation that will go in at the Rogers Family Park. That's the fund we'll pull from to pay whatever artists we engage to do whatever type of performance we choose to do out in the park. Happy to answer any questions about those numbers. All right, great, thanks.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, Holly. All right, moving to item number 3, staff update. Back to you, Holly.
I've got 2.5 things. Number one, I just want to announce, as you might have seen when you walked in, we have an exhibition up that is work from something called the Indiana University Prison Arts Initiative. So this is something that actually comes out of the IU Arts and Humanity Council's office. It is a program where instructors based at IU are going into jails and prisons and working with students to make works of art. We thought this was a pretty amazing initiative, and so we partnered with them to do an exhibition of the students' work in the atrium of City Hall. It's super exciting. We had a little reception for it last Friday. Some pretty impressive people were here, including Maya Michelson, who's the director of the Indiana Arts Commission. We've also gotten some press on this, and ABC branch out of Indianapolis, and Indiana Public Medium both did stories on this, so that is pretty exciting. The exhibition will be up until February 17th. You're welcome to come have a look whenever City Hall is open to the public. I just want to share too, I feel like we've had some conversations at past meetings about just making City Hall more dynamic, and I feel like this is a first step in this direction. And what struck me, one of the things that struck me most at the reception on Friday night is how much people liked that atrium space. They liked the light, they liked the sawtooth ceiling structure, they liked the exposed brick wall. And it's so funny because I never think about that part of City Hall. I always think about this, like, more dim, no natural light area. I'm just going to kind of take that as an initiative to try to rotate art exhibitions more frequently through that space. So far, the Office of the Mayor has been very happy to support these exhibitions, so I just want to keep that going. It's just sometimes it's also just a matter of partnering with other departments who sometimes use that space for their public engagements, just making sure everybody is happy and on board with the work that we're showing. So again, hoping to keep this initiative going through the course of this year. I also just want to share, and Elliot, you can say more about this too if you want to. So next Friday evening at 6 p.m., the Waldron Art Center is going to host talks by emerging artists that the BAC funded as part of last year's grant cycle. They're going to do anyone who has work in that show has been invited just to do like a 3-minute talk, so you can go there and hear them talk about their work next Friday night.
What's the date?
It's February 17th. Yeah. And then we're also hosting an artist party tomorrow night, but I'm going to let Chaz, who has always done the bulk of the work organizing these things and just created this amazing force in the community, say a few more words about that.
Thanks, Holly. Couldn't have done it without ya. Or Gerard and Natalie for this one, because we're partnering with the IU Arts and Humanities Council, Grand Film Festival. They're going to announce their lineup, so very exciting. We have like 102 or 3 people RSVP'd to the party, so it should be fun. It's tomorrow night, 7 to 9, Backspace Gallery on the square. You can pop in, please feel free. It'll be a lot of the IU crowd and their people they're inviting, but a lot of the folks are also, community artists, local artists, or our admins. So it should be interesting to see 103 people in this room and see what they get up to. So yeah, it's free. So yeah, and again, just a reminder of these, it's to get people in a room together, just get artists, and try to create more connection in the easiest way possible by literally just putting people together. So yeah, I hope you can come by 7 to 9 tomorrow, Backspace Gallery, behind Von Fett on the square. And we'll have 4 more of these, but thank you to IU for sponsoring it. And as usual, a plug, if you know of anyone who wants to be my artist newsletter list, please let me know. I am at like 325. It's exciting, so trying to build that as well to provide more connection that way. So thanks, guys. But
Thanks.
Please show up because they want to meet the commissioners too. So that'll be cool.
Awesome.
Thanks, Holly. Yeah, we're in Utah.
Oh yeah, thanks, Natalie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. That's all I've got from the city end.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Holly and Chaz. Okay, moving on to item number 4. This is commissioner feedback on the updated bylaws document. So this item is going to take, I think we're hoping to take a good amount of time to talk about this, unless there's just like unanimous praise and consent for the document, and we just can just give a thumbs up and move along. But my hope for today is that we sort of talk through any questions or things that people want to bring up about the about what's in the document, talk through any issues, and then vote on the doc and any needed changes with it. So I think before we open up the floor to a discussion, Nick, is there anything that you'd like to say to sort of, I get preface the discussion or anything?
That's a good question. I mean, I short of like recapping the document itself, which I don't know is 100% necessary for the commission, you know, but I'll maybe say this just for the sake of any members of the public. You know, this is not something that is being attached to the formal city bylaws. You know, this is more of an internal guide for the Arts Commission. It is something that can change in the future. But I think with the amount of turnover and change that we've experienced, especially during the pandemic, you know, something that a lot of boards and commissions can suffer from is like a loss of institutional memory. And I think we just wanted to leave a little bit of a guide for future commissions to help make good decisions that still felt like they were transparent and gave people opportunities to participate fairly. You know, and I think particularly for new commissioners to be able to get involved, you know, quickly, and know sort of the formal avenues to do that. You know, so we look to really sort of better define some of the roles. You know, the big addition here is that of the vice chair. You know, and with those sort of job descriptions, you know, we also wanted to address the role of every commissioner, right? Like not simply leave it at these, you know, sort of defined leadership positions, but make sure that, particularly for a new commissioner when they come in, they sort of have a little bit of a guide for how, sort of what their entry point is, and also looking at, you know, the roles of staff and how those relate to the commissioners, and then the rest is really more about process and terms. You know, just so that there's a bit of structure to that. So I'll stop there, but that's the general intent for anyone who feels a little less up to speed on the conversation.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, thank you for that. Okay, I would like to open up the floor for discussion on the bylaws. And would anyone like to kick
I can
things
say
off?
something.
Wonderful. Hi, Suzanne.
Hi. I think they're very straightforward. I appreciate that. Sometimes bylaws kind of go in circles. So I think really well done. And there's nothing that isn't, you know, clear. I do have one question, and that's maybe it's just a versioning issue, and that's on the version that Gerard, you sent around, draft 02. There's a black lined, what page is this on? Hold on. It's after the grant subcommittee meetings. I can't tell what page that is. Before Bloomington Arts Commission core objectives. I'm wondering if that should just be deleted, or if you're showing that it was eliminated intentionally. Do you see what I'm talking about?
Just right
Yeah,
now.
page 10.
On
Yeah.
page 10, yeah.
Oh, yes. I think I just wanted. I know that point had come up in discussion a couple times, and so I think I wanted that to be in there for like us. I think maybe discussing it internally, noting that like we had given that some like that had been part of the discussion, but it's. I think we've since learned that that is not an issue that we need to be concerned with.
Oh, so that's not true anymore? Okay.
Correct. But yeah, that will, from like the formal doc, we will remove that item.
Yeah, and then also on what's the page? On page 8, there's the question of whether or not when a commissioner fills a existing vacant spot, whether or not they're eligible for 1 or 2 consecutive terms after that.
Yes, we need to learn the
Yes,
answer to
that's
that.
yes.
So I'm still outstanding.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's still an outstanding point.
Yeah.
Okay.
As well.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think if when we vote on these, we will maybe vote on with the
Yeah.
sort of note that like pending the like total
Yeah.
complete understanding of that particular point on
Alright.
commissioners and their terms.
Yeah, I don't think it should hold
Yeah,
us up at all.
my sense is that the answer to that is you have your 2 terms plus the vacancy, because I was just renewed for 3 terms, and in my letter it said that I could apply for another 3-year term. And so, assuming that that is all correct.
Yeah.
I'll follow up with the council liaison about that, just so we can
Okay.
close the loop on that.
Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts or questions or notes or praise for the document?
Thank
Yeah, I
you
think it's
to the
nice.
task force.
I think it's nice and concise, and
Yeah.
it can really outlines all the operations, but in a really clear-cut way. It doesn't, as Suzanne mentioned, it doesn't circle or loop at all, or it's not redundant in
Yeah.
any ways that I've seen. So, yeah.
Okay, good.
Who or where will keep this document, since it's not going to be attached to our city, ordinance?
Yeah, I think that's up to, I guess, me as secretary and Holly to
Yeah.
figure out sort of where it lives in our shared BAC drive. Yeah.
Yeah, but my sense was that the secretary would sort of oversee the management of the doc, but as far as exactly where, that's TBD.
Yeah.
Cool. Does anyone have any notes or thoughts about the vice chair position? I mean, I think we had talked about it a little bit in the run up to these meetings, and I mean, part of why we included it was, I think, at the recommendation of I think broader discussions that we had here at the commission. I mean, I'm glad if everyone's happy and pleased with with it as outlined, but I'm just wondering. I just wanted to highlight that in particular, since that is a definitively new element to our bylaws.
I think it would be useful, in a year or two's time, to revisit that position and see what can be done to articulate it even further with
Sure.
that experience, because it is a position that is sort of in between. To understand what that space actually is after a few years would be helpful. But as it is, I think it's a very helpful role.
Yeah.
Yeah, I second that. I think I'm interested to see how it's implemented.
Mhm.
I like the role in the outline. I know that we discussed it being part of the bylaws committee, but yeah, eager to see that in action.
Do you think there needs to be any clear-cut responsibilities explicated in the language of those positions at all, or is it? I mean, I see the value in it kind of staying semi-open-ended and a little flexible, and kind of give it that time to be fleshed out. But I don't know if other folks had other thoughts regarding that.
I think it's helpful, internally, if something came up with any of the commission members and they're thinking, well, who should I take this to, or something like that. I mean, I think that's where it's going to be helpful, is understanding, who has the responsibility or the vision for whatever might come up. Instead of always going through the chair,
Sure. Yeah.
Holly or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was, an intent of the task force was to provide some structure, but keep things open and flexible, just knowing that we are a group of volunteers and we have, collectively or individually, strengths and weaknesses, and some chairs might approach things a slightly different way, some vice chairs might, and I think the thinking was, as long as we kind of follow this outline, those specific details will be worked out by people's particular strengths and preferences. And also, I think we are going to have these in such a way that there is room to amend kind of as we see fit. So.
Sure. Yeah. And I think the other thing is that, I mean, maybe this was just my manager, corporate manager brain going to it, but I think sort of treating these a little bit like job descriptions, that often there are two types of job descriptions. There's like the public-facing version, that is maybe in a job posting or, on a website, and then there's like the internal-facing version that's more of like the extended task list of what's every little thing that someone does, right? And I think that what we ended up writing was more along the lines of the former, maybe a slightly more expanded version of that, so that it was covering sort of general responsibilities, so that there was some demarcation between the roles. But yeah, sort of like you said, it maintains some flexibility and doesn't sort of paint anyone into a corner, or presume what the priorities of the commission might be 6 years from now when none of us are here.
I like that it provided a protocol for transition in positions, because it seemed like we had, the last time when positions were up, it was, wasn't really, we didn't have that. And so I think that that's really helpful.
All right. Well, if there are no further comments or notes or questions, then I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion. Where are my notes here? Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion to vote on the approval of the bylaws doc with the added note that we will finalize the language on the rules regarding applying for a second term, or I guess technically a third term, if you've served a partial term, a full term, and then what comes next. So can I get a second on that motion?
Second.
Okay. All in favor of approving the bylaws doc, say A. A. Is that right? A? Damn, I blanked on that for a second. Aye, that's it. Man, messing up my vowel sounds today.
Fair enough. I like that more.
At least that wasn't recorded. At least there's no record of that.
Don't worry, I'm gonna Penelope.
Right, yeah. We can fix that in post, right? Okay, all opposed, say nay. Say nay. Wonderful. All right, the bylaws are approved. I want to say two quick things on that. One, thank you, Nick, for really taking the lead on that and convening the task force, keeping us on schedule, and I'd say doing a bulk of the work and the note taking and bringing this document to us. Yeah, this is really great to have for us, and I think for future commissions as well. And second, looking for a vice chair. So, yeah, right. Yeah, my email is open, or come and talk to me sometime. But yeah, we're gonna need a vice chair now. So, all right, excellent. Moving on to our subcommittee updates. We'll start with an update from Public Art. Natalie.
Sweet. All right. So the Public Art subcommittee had a very chilly meeting the other day, Friday, in front of the new Hopewell development site. And we met there to discuss just potential public art opportunities at that site. And we got to meet with our friends in Parks and, remind me who we met with.
Engineering.
And engineering,
Yes.
yes. And yeah, a lot of exciting opportunities to come. I know that's just getting off the ground, but we're excited to be in on the initial planning stages and to really get thinking. I just got all of the information that we got there digitally, so I'll be sharing that with the Public Art Subcommittee in the coming days. Yeah. And I think the other major update to share is just that we're going to push back the release of the Public Art Master Plan a bit, just to allow for a more diverse scope of work featured in the examples that we have throughout. So we're going to talk to a few folks on the commission and review it a little more and just get, just a more holistic view of public arts in there. So yeah, I think those are the two updates that need to be shared today. Everything else is just moving along, chugging along.
Okay, great. Thanks. Yeah,
Sweet.
perfect, thanks.
Any questions on that?
Comments? Concerns?
I saw there's a sign at the corner of Hopewell that says like "Welcome to our next awesome neighborhood" or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
I don't know who put that up, but
It was very interesting to just like stand there and like see they handed us plans and I was like, oh, piecing it together. It was like, oh wow, yeah.
It was so weird because
Yeah.
I didn't realize that they'd removed all, I mean, when I was like, wait a minute, am I in the right place?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
you haven't been down there, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it looks so
Mhm.
different.
Yeah.
Living down there, it's been interesting watching them tear it down
Yeah.
day by
Yeah.
day. Yeah,
For sure.
yeah.
Well, great. Move on then.
Were there any significant outcomes for any particular locations in terms of like prospective, like, I don't know, locations for either art or, you know, gathering spaces for artists or anything like that?
Yeah, I think so. There is a space that will have a bit of like an elevated stage type of park area that I think that there's a fair amount of talks of potentially putting something there. And then was the other part on the boulevard?
Yeah.
entrance? Sorry,
Yeah,
forgive me.
This is why this was so great, even though we were all freezing.
Mhm.
It was just so great to be standing there and be oriented with the
Yes.
plans. So the plan is to have a boulevard that runs from Rogers, or from Morton and the B line, right where the Kroger is, up to Rogers, and that's going to kind of be this pedestrian boulevard where things like the stage will be. But they're also going to kind of use trees to kind of create a kind of barrier between where Kroger is and this boulevard, just so you know people aren't crashing into Kroger, basically. But there was also talk about potentially putting a piece of public art there. One thing that we're going to be doing next month is seeing a 3D visualization of the entire site, and we're hoping that that will start us being able to think more concretely about where other pieces of public art might go within the larger development. Because that process of the work in determining like what that is actually going to look like and how housing and other facilities are going to be ultimately laid out on that larger plot, that might take a little longer. But my understanding is, you know, because this construction is happening in phases, the funds for us to do things are also going to be released and affiliated with different phases. So my understanding is, you know, because we actually know what is going on in the boulevard and that's going to be the first focus, that's where we can first focus our energy. And then as plans for these other phases become more concrete, then we can start putting our energy into saying, okay, how much money do we have for this plot and where do we want to put something based on that? So it's really exciting. It's a multi-year project. But again, just being, I don't know, for some reason, just being out there in the cold with these colleagues from the city, I feel like that was the first time I really, like, this all like made sense, and it was just so great to hear this information from folks who have really been on the ground with this. It was just really exciting and just kind of all come to the table with like what we all know are now the knowns and like what we all understand are the known unknowns. So.
Donald Rumsfeld language.
Yes.
No unknowns.
All right, excellent. Let's move on. Are there any other questions or comments about public art or the work of the subcommittee?
Is there a percent for art in the Hopewell budget?
We're working
Okay.
to determine what ultimately that number will be.
Okay.
That is also a working process.
Got it.
But we are known. It is known that this will.
unknown.
That is a known. No, but the number is.
Okay.
We're gonna try to push it.
Yeah.
Great.
And I think on the public art master plan, I mean, I think the plan there, I want to correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
is still to review that at the next meeting,
Oh,
or are we pushing it back even further? Is the plan still to review it
I would love
Okay.
to have that
Yeah,
for review.
yeah.
and
So I think
knowledge,
just to put some specific, a specific time frame on that, the plan is that I think similar to the bylaws, we'll send it out well in advance for folks to look over, and we'll have a similar discussion on the public art master plan, and vote on that at the next meeting, at the March meeting, and then I think a release of that will take place, I think in April is the plan.
That's
Because,
our intention, is a release, and then some concentrated efforts to meet with neighborhood associations and small businesses who might be interested in doing things, just to really pique their interest and get buy-in to doing cool stuff.
Okay, excellent. Okay, anything else on public art? All right, wonderful. Let's move on to an update from the grant subcommittee. Elliot?
Hi, everyone. So thank you for those who weighed in on the updated proposed grant cycle schedule. There was a slight change from the draft version to the version that will go public, and that was just based on a sense of commissioner capacity over the summer. So we have the emerging artist grants now in the fall, and the operations grants in the summer, just based on last year's experience, quantity, the time it took to review. So the arts project grants will open on Tuesday, the 21st of February, and will close a month later, a month and change later on Friday the 31st. The rest of the schedule is all available, will become available once we publish it momentarily. And excitingly, we're going to have a in-person kickoff sort of launch for the whole year's worth of grants. So in the past, we've done a info session on Zoom for each grant cycle. This year, we're going to try to return to some in-person activity with the Zoom option, of course, for everyone to make it most accessible. And that's going to be on February 21st at the Monroe County Public Library downtown at 6 p.m. So if commissioners would like to come, it'd be great to see you all there. Holly and I will be administering the program, and it'll be a way to not only get people to understand the Bloomington Arts Commission and what we do and the purpose of the grants and how it fulfills a portion of our mission, but also to give everyone a sense of the overall picture of the whole year, so that folks can have a better sense of where their granting funding aspirations would best fit. So, is this a project grant? Is it an operations grant? Emerging artists? We'll have give everyone a really bigger picture sense of what we're looking for at each cycle, so that folks can kind of sort themselves out or then follow up with us. I think that's also thanks to Gerard and Suzanne for volunteering to be on a task force. Task force is still in the forming, but for those of you who were on the grants committee, a number of questions came up last year with the revised grant cycle around definitions of an emerging artist. How do we fund certain entities in town that have other affiliations, particularly with Indiana University? How do we factor in other people's financial support or in-kind support? Questions about how to best design grant reporting materials. So that's all going to be sort of workshopped in this smaller task force and then brought to the committee and then the commission over the course of this second year of my chairship. And should I talk about grant software? Do people want to know about that yet? Sure. Chaz has lifted up and brought to birth this great software application that we'll be launching with this year's cycle. So we'll no longer be using the Google Forms strategy, which had its issues. We'll be able to move people through the application process on this portal. That will make the back end a lot easier in terms of assigning reviewers, submitting feedback, all of that, we'll be able to just kind of coordinate better.
And on the review side, it's really easy.
Yeah.
Found out.
Great. Yeah.
So-
So a huge amount of time in the grants, a huge amount of labor in grants is spent just collating applications before we assign them, getting things into the right folders. This will, inshallah, automate a lot of that process and save us a lot of time and effort. So very excited to roll that out. We'll also be, I think, discussing that in the 21st, the public meeting.
Yes.
I assume, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions or thoughts on that? No?
I have a question.
Yeah.
And we can talk about this more after, but if I wanted to join the grants committee, is now the moment
Now
to
is the
join
moment.
for that cycle?
It is the moment
All
to
right.
join. Please do.
Cool.
I've been meaning to email you about that. Yes. So if you're interested in joining the grants committee, please do let me know. If you are on the grants committee and feel that your obligations are too stretched thin, I will sadly say goodbye to you. Just let me know. And also, if you have readers in mind, readers from the community, folks you think who would be a good set of eyes to see, please put me either just give me their name and contact or put me in touch with them, and I'll do the recruiting process.
Can I add? I'm really interested in the task force conversation. I know that I'm mostly a reader now with the being a public art subcommittee
Yeah.
chair. But if that's something that I could help with on that front, I would love to be involved in that conversation.
Yeah, given your workload, it will be a lot, but I will absolutely, particularly with folks who have, I welcome everyone's perspective on this, and I think a lot of people can contribute to that conversation in different ways. So I'll make sure that it's available throughout the process in some discrete ways, so that we're not just sort of giving you our edicts towards the end. So yeah,
Thanks.
great.
Fantastic. Any questions or anything for the grants subcommittee? All right, great. Thank you, Elliot. Okay, moving on to the next item on the agenda from your chair. So the first point here is about, again, the communications plan task force. Would love to hear from people if they are interested in being a part of it. I've spent a little bit of time to kind of I come up with a couple bullet points on what exactly is the scope, or what I'm seeing is as the scope of this task force. And it's, there's certainly plenty to be discussed, but I see it as pretty straightforward. And I think will be kept on a similar timeline to the bylaws task force, if not shorter, I think. And it's to, basically come up with a plan that describes, the content to prioritize on our website and best practices for maintenance, content to prioritize on social media platforms and best practices for maintenance, and additional comm needs or holes to fill. So things like a newsletter, routine notes. A point of clarity on that is that this task force is not going to be charged with drafting any of the content or maintaining any of the sites. This is just the coming up of a plan and of best practices that will then be implemented by, based on the findings of the task force by either folks on the commission, or maybe we decide that, oh, hey, we want to, find someone else to sort of, contract and work with us. So looking for folks who are basically going to help come up with a plan. Just want to be clear about that and what you're signing up for. So would please email me or talk to me if you are interested in being a part of those planning discussions, and we'll go from there. All right, my second note is that I'm hoping to plan a commissioner get-together of sorts in March and April. This will be sort of just a purely social event. I will send out a doodle poll, I think, in the next week or so to sort of figure out some dates, because I would love to get. I know it's tough to get a time where everyone can meet, but I would love to find a time where we can all just get together and talk, hang out, and yeah, just sort of be social. And then one thing I will add to this, I've already noted it, but would love to hear from folks who are interested in the vice chair position. Now that the bylaws and that has been approved, we will be looking for that. So please come talk to me if you have interest in that. And with that, unless there are any questions about those items, we can move on to commissioner announcements.
There's an exhibition opening at the Eskenazi Museum on February 16th. My colleague Lauren Richmond, who's the photography curator, is opening a really exciting show. It's a group show called Direct Contact, Camelist Photography Now. So it's about photographic practices that are non-lens based, so are more abstract, not based on capturing images in the world around us. So it looks really exciting. I actually haven't been able to get inside yet because install. But please do come by, and perhaps if it's of interest, I could organize like a BAC outing to see the show at some point. Maybe try to grab Lauren to talk about the show with us. So let me know.
The booklet was fantastic. I
Oh,
don't know
yeah.
why I received it, but
Great.
I think it's IU Alumni Association. If I looked at the
Is that, yeah, I know they had some mailing lists.
Yeah.
That I actually haven't seen the book. I've seen it, but I have not read it yet.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Got one.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Friday, over at the Cook Center from 6 to 9 p.m., we'll be hosting a reading featuring all of the poets that are in our Blacklit exhibit that's currently up in our Grand Hall. And it's a reading in collaboration with the Neil Marshall Black Culture Center Library. They used to host it in their space, but when we opened the Cook Center, started collaborating on an exhibit and moved the event over into our space as well. So it's just a night celebrating iconic Black literature and original Black literature. And yeah, it's going to be really fun. There'll be drinks and food, and all of the poems in the exhibit are really moving and awesome. So it's a good time.
What time is it?
6 to 9 p.m. Mm-hmm.
Is Justin Cartney in that?
Yes, he
Okay,
is.
so emerging
Mhm.
artist
And this is his,
recipients
yeah,
for
one of our
featuring,
emerging
yeah.
artist recipients.
You're a great photographer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, his work is lovely.
And this is his poetry debut, actually. So,
Nice.
pretty fun. Yeah, a lot of familiar faces are in that exhibit too. So, I see some other friends.
I think
Mhm.
Essence, who
Essence.
was on the
Oh,
on the
wow.
commission.
Yeah, Essence, yeah.
Wow.
Elise.
Elise Smith.
Smith.
Lee Smith, who
Uh,
was on the
Couple
show.
familiar names in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
We curated. Yeah,
Corey Griggs.
it's gonna be lit.
Exactly. 11 artists. Mhm. Thanks, Chaz. I wanted to do it, but I'm glad that you did it for me.
I'm not glad I did it. It had to be fun.
Good work. Congrats.
I do not have an announcement, but I do have a quick question, if it's okay to insert that.
Sure.
Sure.
I did not speak up quickly enough as we were going through it, so I apologize for circling back, but I was curious about, in thinking through the call for, a vice chair and filling that role, I don't think I saw it in the description of the roles or under the leadership terms and processes, but is there any sort of expectation for vice chair to then move into the chair role at any point? Is that something that we want to include? I mean, it seems like it would sort of make sense that maybe that happens, but obviously we wouldn't want to keep someone from being the vice chair. I just, that was a question, and it could potentially just be something that we talk about amongst ourselves so that we don't lock us into anything in the bylaws, but it was just a question I had as we're sort of seeking out a vice chair.
Yeah, we talked about that actually, and I think the consensus was, like in a lot of other organizations or functions, it's a natural path that could be taken, and it probably prepares someone to step into that role. But again, we didn't want to sort of limit the opportunities, and so I think that, and especially with how we sort of dealt with terms, there's this sort of tricky line of like, okay, do you need to jump into the vice chair to then be eligible to get into the chair role in your second term or whatever? And so, I think we wanted to leave it a little bit open-ended, just to be flexible depending on like the makeup of the commission.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, Nick, about, because if we can in fact only serve 2 terms, that would make it seems like it would make it hard to jump right into vice chair and then, but maybe not.
Yeah. Second, what Nick says, and I think a lot of what you were saying as you were asking your question, like a lot of those points came up in our discussion, and yeah, I mean there are certain I think a lot of different ways we could have taken that, or like details or recommendations or things that we could have added to it, but I think we wanted to keep things mostly open. So
yeah, but actually, and we didn't discuss this in depth here, but that was, I think, maybe part of the calculus in how we talked about the terms for chairs, right? Like, we debated how strict we should be about the minimum, the maximum, and I think we left it as sort of this like minimum 1 year, like for the chair, for example, minimum 1 year, maximum 3 years, suggested 2, right? Like, and that in a way maybe sounds like a whole lot of hedging, but I think it kind of is, where there could be a scenario where you have someone in the chair role and 3 years feels like a big commitment. They're like, I know I can do a year, hopefully more than that, right? And so it's possible. We have a string of chairs who are in the role for 3 years, but maybe not. And so I think it's kind of TBD, how quickly people will cycle through these things. Yeah.
Thank you all for that context.
yeah, great question.
Yeah, really good question.
Okay. I'm happy to give some announcements if we're okay to move to that. As Chaz said, tomorrow is the artist party / sort of grand falloon public announcement. I think just a quick thing to clarify on that. I know in years past we've had sort of like, we've announced with like not coherent, just like a full and complete lineup of all the artists and all the programs and everything. Tomorrow will primarily be a public announcement of the key dates, key partnerships and events, and some of our headliners. We are going to be sort of like doing a slower rollout of our like full and total lineup, which is something new that we're trying this year and that we're excited about. But so that's like that is the information that will be presented both in sort of the announcement, the public announcement that will, I think, come out during the day tomorrow, and then there'll be posters and stuff like that celebrating it at the party itself. Also on the council front, our next meeting is in March, and that's like right before the deadline for First Thursdays. For the April First Thursdays, which is our First Thursdays that we do in the spring semester. So if you know of any groups or artists who are thinking about participating and maybe they've mentioned something to you about it, have them get in contact with me before the next meeting, because the deadline for sort of like locking in that equipment and locking in that space is going to be March 10th. And yeah, April is always a big old fest because it's our one fest of the semester. And yeah, we've got some exciting things lined up for it. So yeah. Also, I had one other personal announcement is, and sorry if this is like is too much, but the other day I saw my son draw for the first time. Like we were watching a soccer game and he has this like little pad and he drew the center circle. And it was just like really incredible to see like that start of like artistic expression and just like seeing like, so when we get it's just like moments like that when we get bogged down in just sort of like talking about like grants and terms and like proposals and like all those things, like there's this like real like, I don't know, like there is this purity underneath all of that like we of course all get to see in our daily lives in lots of other ways, but that was like a moment of like reminding me of that. So that's great.
That's so beautiful. Can we think about the lower end of emerging artists age range?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. When we discuss it.
Yeah, right.
No, really, that's gorgeous. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Suzanne. Any other commissioner announcements? All right, let's move on to public comment. Any members of the public have any comments or questions for us? Thank you for being here, Christina and Susan.
Oh, sorry. Hi, it's Susan.
Hey.
I just love coming to watch you guys. It's fun for me. It's really nice to see you guys struggling with your bylaws. And it's just I find it very reassuring and other things that I'm involved in that, everyone is always in the same place. I find that really frightening and reassuring.
Okay.
I did, the one thing I want to say is hi, and I think someone from 4th Street, I've been begging people to come and watch or to apply for your seat, and I'm under the impression that someone has applied.
Yes.
Do you know anything about that, Gerard?
I don't. Holly might.
I do know that someone did apply for that. So yeah, and
Okay.
yeah, from 4th Street. Yeah.
Okay. Because I kept telling her, you gotta be involved, so, I'm hoping that happens, so.
Yeah, and so council currently is reviewing, so we have one vacancy, and we have so many qualified applicants. My mind is a little blown, and it's, no, so we have two. So we have one council appointment. So a council appointment is when they have to, we go through the interview process, and that's basically like, so council goes through all of the applications that they've received in the past few months and just selects folks to be interviewed. So that is happening now. And so I'm hoping that an appointment will happen by the end of this month, and so we'll be able to welcome a new council person or a new commissioner who is council appointed by our March meeting. If anybody has any specific recommendations and you just want to let me know, please shoot me an email. There's still time to get interviews arranged. And then we have a mayoral appointment that is vacant. And unless anyone in here has gotten a letter, we can't officially announce anything tonight. But we will hopefully be welcoming 2 new commissioners at our March meeting. 1 mayorally appointed and 1 council appointed.
Okay, good.
All right, excellent. If that is all the comments, all the announcements, then I'm going to go ahead and motion to adjourn the meeting. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right. Calling it good at 5:59. Thanks all.
Right.